The housewarming party in Pinecrest Estates felt like stepping into a magazine spread. Manicured lawns glowing under string lights, white picket fences gleaming, and every mailbox painted the exact shade of HOA-approved beige. I stood in my new backyard in a simple sundress, wine glass in hand, trying to smile through the knot in my stomach. My name is Maddie Thompson. To the neighbors, I was the fresh divorcee who just dropped her grandmother's $200,000 inheritance on this cookie-cutter dream home. To everyone except Karen Whitaker, the HOA president who insisted on being called President Whitaker, even at backyard barbecues. She glided through the crowd in her pastel cardigan and pearl necklace like she owned the oxygen itself. Karen leaned in close, her perfume a cloud of gardenia and superiority. With that faint, practiced smile, she whispered, "Do you think your $200,000 inheritance bought you a real place here?" My fingers tightened around the stem of the glass. Guests were laughing at some joke about keeping standards, cameras flashing for the community Facebook page. But suddenly the fairy lights blurred. What she said wasn't just catty. It was a warning. And right then I realized this wasn't the start of my fresh start. It was the beginning of my revenge. Standing there in my brand new 3-bedroom at 142 Oakwood Lane, I should have felt like the luckiest woman in suburban America. Instead, Karen's words drilled into my skull. The backyard sparkled with HOA-approved solar lanterns and white roses clipped to military precision. Each bloom probably costing more than my monthly water bill. Ethan Whitaker, Karen's son, stood beside me, his hand warm on my lower back as we greeted another wave of his startup buddies who'd somehow just happened to drop by. He looked perfect in his pressed polo, sandy hair gelled just right, that confident grin that had first caught my eye at the welcome committee mixer 2 months ago. "Congratulations on joining the community," gushed Mrs. Hargrove, one of the board's most vocal watchdogs. I smiled, played the grateful new neighbor, but inside I was drowning. Karen circulated like a shark in sensible flats, her silver cardigan catching the light. To everyone else, she was the picture of maternal community spirit. But I knew better. I'd grown up watching women like her, calculating, always smiling while tightening the leash. The $200,000. God, how had I been so blind? When she'd suggested I contribute it to the Pinecrest Future Fund 6 weeks after I closed, I actually thought, stupidly, pathetically, that maybe she was finally showing real welcome the only way she knew how, through control disguised as investment. "It's an investment in your future here, Maddie," she'd said, sliding the paperwork across her perfectly organized kitchen island. "The Whitakers are connected people. This will secure your position." Position, like I was a chess piece on her HOA board. I watched Ethan work the crowd, noticed how his eyes lit up when discussing quarterly projections, but glazed over when elderly Mrs. Patel tried to share stories about her late husband's garden. When had I started noticing these things? Or had Karen's whisper simply ripped the veil from my eyes? My ex had left when I was 32. One random Tuesday, his coffee mug still warm on the counter, his side of the closet empty. Karen never cried for me, never explained. She just tightened her grip on everything, especially the new residents. Every decision, every blade of grass, every welcome sign had to pass through her approval. The private landscaping contracts, the approved flag colors, the career and marketing she deemed suitable for meeting the right kind of neighbors. "Maddie, sweetheart, you look absolutely radiant." Ethan's mother. Wait, no, that was Karen herself. Approached with a plastic flute of sparkling cider, unlike the genuine warmth I'd hoped for. Her embrace was calculated, her smile sharp. "Thank you, Karen," I managed, accepting the drink though my stomach churned. "Where did Ethan disappear to?" she asked, scanning the crowd. I hadn't even noticed he'd left my side. Probably talking shop with the venture guys by the grill. Karen laughed that tight little laugh. That boy and his networking. Well, at least you'll never want for anything. Want for anything except maybe real belonging. The kind that doesn't come with fines and surveillance cameras. The rest of the party blurred together. Cutting the celebratory cake, $500 from the HOA-approved bakery. First dance to an HOA playlist, of course. Speeches that rang hollow while Karen's inner circle toasted community values. Ethan's best friend joked about how Ethan had closed the deal of the decade by welcoming the new blood. Everyone laughed. I smiled until my cheeks ached. As the evening wound down, I found myself alone on the back patio, overlooking the perfectly uniform street. The October breeze bit through my dress, but I welcomed the cold. It felt more honest than the warmth inside. "You're shivering." Ethan appeared with my wrap, draping it over my shoulders. For a moment, he looked like the guy I'd started seeing after Karen introduced us. Concerned. Attentive. "Just needed air," I said. He studied my face. "Mom said something to you earlier during the photos." So he noticed. "It's nothing." He turned me to face him, hands on my shoulders. "We're official now, Maddie. No secrets." "No secrets?" I almost laughed. She asked if I thought the inheritance bought me acceptance. His expression didn't change. Not surprise, not indignation, nothing. "That's ridiculous. You know I care about you." But he didn't say the money had nothing to do with us. He didn't say he'd date me without a penny. He just smiled that practice smile and led me back inside to continue the performance. That night in my new master bedroom, overlooking the identical rooftops as Ethan slept beside me, I stared at the ceiling and wondered when exactly I'd become a transaction. And more importantly, how much it would cost to buy my freedom back. The ranch-style house in Pinecrest Estates was everything Instagram dreams were made of. Floor-to-ceiling windows, quartz counters, a view of the community pond that real estate agents would kill for. Ethan had insisted we needed it for networking opportunities. I'd given up my cozy apartment in the city along with my marketing job to play the perfect HOA wife. 3 months into this relationship, I'd mastered the routine. Morning yoga while Ethan checked markets. Breakfast, egg whites for him, black coffee for me, a kiss goodbye that felt more like a board meeting handshake. Then the empty hours stretched like an expensive cage. "You don't need to work anymore, Maddie," Ethan had said when I mentioned looking for freelance gigs. "Focus on us, on our life together." Our life apparently meant organizing HOA-approved potlucks and pretending to care about quarterly beautification reports. The first sign something was wrong came on a random Thursday. I'd been organizing Ethan's home office. He'd asked me to file some papers when I noticed our joint account statement. 3 large transfers, each exactly $25,000, to something called PW Consulting. When I asked Ethan that evening, he barely looked up from his laptop. "Investment opportunities, babe. Trust me, I'm doing this for us." Trust. That word again. Karen called every day at precisely 2 p.m. Never earlier, never later. Like clockwork surveillance. "How's Ethan's startup pitch going?" Though I'd never mentioned any pitch. "What pitch, Karen?" "Oh, Maddie, you really should pay more attention to your partner's business." A good neighbor knows these things. The calls always ended the same way, with me feeling smaller, more confused, like I was failing some invisible test. Ethan started coming home later. First 8 p.m., then 10, then midnight. Always with perfect excuses, client dinners, emergency board calls, Zoom meetings with investors. His clothes smelled like cologne and coffee. Nothing suspicious, but there was distance in his eyes that hadn't been there before. Or maybe it had always been there, and I'd been too HOA blinded to see it. One night, I tried to bridge the gap. I'd cooked his favorite grilled salmon with truffle risotto from our second date. Candles, wine, the whole romantic cliché. "This is nice," he said, but he kept checking his phone. "Can we talk?" I asked. "Really talk like we used to?" He set down his fork. "What's wrong, Maddie? You have everything you wanted, this house, the lifestyle, security." "I wanted you," I said quietly. "I wanted us. You have me." But even as he said it, his phone buzzed. He glanced, and something flickered. "I need to take this." He disappeared into his office. Through the door, I heard fragments. "Karen said the timeline. Make sure the paperwork, Karen." My HOA president's name on my boyfriend's lips at 10 p.m. I started paying attention after that. Really paying attention. The way Karen and Ethan exchanged looks at Sunday HOA mixers. The documents he'd quickly close when I entered. The fact that PW Consulting, President Whitaker's initials, appeared on more and more statements. 2 weeks before everything shattered, I found myself standing in our bedroom, staring at Ethan's unlocked tablet he'd forgotten on the nightstand. I shouldn't look. A good neighbor trusts. But I wasn't feeling like a good neighbor anymore. The email was right there from Karen to Ethan, dated a week before I moved in. The transfer will clear once the relationship is official. Remember, 30% stake as discussed. And doesn't need to know until after joint assets. She's always been manageable. Manageable, like I was a problem to be solved. A deal to be closed. I set the tablet down carefully, my hand surprisingly steady. Outside, Pinecrest glittered with identical porch lights. Thousands of homes, thousands of lives that suddenly seemed more honest than mine. Somewhere out there, people were forming real friendships, not transactions. I poured myself a glass of the good wine, the $300 bottle Ethan was saving. Well, discovering your relationship as a business merger seemed special enough. When Ethan came home, I was still awake, curled on the couch. "You're up late," he observed, loosening his tie. Couldn't sleep. I took another sip. "Hey, what's PW Consulting?" The micro pause told me everything. "Just some financial advisors." "Why?" "No reason. Just saw it on a statement." He kissed my forehead, performative, empty. "Don't worry about that stuff. That's my department." His department. While my department was apparently being manageable. That night, as Ethan slept, I made my decision. I wouldn't confront them. Not yet. Instead, I'd do what Karen had taught me through years of careful observation. Gather information, build my case, and when the time was right, show them both that some investments come with unexpected returns. The perfect neighbor was about to become their worst nightmare. The truth always reveals itself at 3 a.m. That's when I found myself in Ethan's office, my laptop casting blue light across financial documents I'd photographed earlier. My hands shook as I pieced together the paper trail. Each discovery another nail in the coffin of my so-called fresh start. The $200,000 inheritance, my grandmother's gift, had vanished into PW Consulting within 48 hours of my official welcome. But PW Consulting wasn't just some shell. It was Karen's gateway into her boyfriend Richard's venture capital firm. And Ethan had received exactly 30% stake in a green tech startup Richard was launching, courtesy of my money. They'd sold my place in the neighborhood for startup equity. I screenshot everything, bank statements, incorporation documents, email threads from Ethan's carelessly logged-in account. The email that broke me was dated 2 days before Ethan first asked me out. Maddie's perfect, malleable, trusting, desperately seeking approval. The $200K will give us initial capital. I'll lock it down next month. The agreement you drafted looks standard enough, she won't question it. Malleable, trusting, desperate. Each word a scalpel. The confrontation came at Karen's McMansion during what she called a family investment meeting. I've been summoned like a delinquent resident, told to dress professionally. I wore my sharpest blazer, armor. Karen's boyfriend Richard was there, all silver fox charm. Ethan sat beside him. Not me. The message was clear. Teams chosen, I was the opponent. "We need to discuss restructuring of community assets," Karen began, sliding papers across her glass table. "The initial investment has matured nicely." "You mean my grandmother's money?" I kept my voice steady. Karen's smile was razor thin. "Your money, which I've helped grow. You should be grateful." Grateful. I pulled out my phone, displaying the bank records. "This shows $200,000 transferred from my account to PW Consulting, then immediately to RK Ventures. That's embezzlement, Karen." The room went silent. Richard shifted. Ethan's mask cracked. "Maddie, you don't understand. I understand perfectly." I turned to him. "You negotiated my price before you ever really wanted me here. Was anything real?" "Of course it was real," he said, but his eyes slid away. "It just also made good business sense." Business sense. Our first kiss at the community pool, our dates at HOA events, all just good business sense. Karen stood in her power play stance. Maddie, stop being dramatic. This is how the world works. I've secured your future in Pinecrest. You sold me. The words exploded. You packaged me with a bow made of money and handed me to the highest bidder. I invested in you, she said coldly. Everything I've done has been to position you correctly. The welcome package, the connections, even this relationship. This fraud, you mean? Richard finally spoke. Now let's not use inflammatory language. I laughed, harsh and bitter. Inflammatory? You took my inheritance and used it to buy Ethan's participation in this sham. What would you call it? Karen's composure cracked. You ungrateful little, she caught herself. You owe me everything. Your place here, your opportunities. I owe you. I stood, gathering my papers. Let me be clear. You owe me $200,000 plus interest. And if it's not returned within 30 days, I'm going to the state attorney general, the local news, and every Pinecrest resident with a Facebook account. I have everything, emails, transfers, the works. Ethan grabbed my arm as I passed. Maddie, please. We can work this out. I yanked free. You care about my market value. There's a difference. Karen's voice followed me. You walk out now, you're cut off. No more waivers, no more support, nothing. I turned back. You already cut me off the day you put a price tag on my welcome. Outside, the November rain soaked through my blazer instantly. I sat in my car, engine running, defroster fighting the fog. My phone buzzed with texts. Ethan, we need to talk. Karen, don't do anything stupid. I deleted them all, then made one call. Mitchell Law Group? I need to speak with Lucas Mitchell about a financial fraud case involving PW Consulting and a $200,000 theft. As I drove away from Karen's mansion, away from the life she'd orchestrated, the relationship she'd purchased, the future she'd stolen, I felt something I hadn't in years. Freedom. Terrifying. Exhilarating. And mine. Lucas Mitchell's office overlooked the community pond, close enough to smell fresh-cut grass and chlorine. He wasn't what I'd expected from a fraud attorney. No shark suit. Instead, jeans and a hoodie, looking more like a weekend dad than a legal pit bull who'd taken down corrupt HOAs before. Your case is solid, he said, reviewing my evidence. But winning in court and winning in the neighborhood are different. What do you actually want, Maddie? I've been sleeping in a motel for a week, living off rage and takeout. I want my money back. I want them to pay. That's what you want them to lose. He leaned back. What do you want to gain? The question sat like a challenge. Control, I finally said. Over my life, my house, my future. Over the next 3 weeks, Lucas and I built our strategy, not just legal, psychological. Karen values her reputation above everything, he noted, scrolling her HOA Facebook page. President of the board, chair of every committee, the whole philanthropist facade. And Ethan, his startup depends on investor confidence. One scandal, and it collapses. We worked late, Lucas teaching me financial law, while I provided insider knowledge of Karen's operations. Some nights we'd order pizza and work until the cleaning crew arrived. He never asked why I didn't go home. He knew I didn't have one anymore. You're not the first resident to come through that door, he told me one night. Financial abuse in HOAs, especially wealthy ones, is more common than people think. Presidents who see neighbors as investments, board members who see relationships as acquisitions. Did they win? The ones who fought smart did. While Lucas handled the legal side, I rebuilt myself. I reached out to my old boss at the marketing firm. Turned out she'd never wanted me gone. Ethan had called and said I'd decided to focus on community. She knew that wasn't me. I started back part-time, remembering what it felt like to be good at something that was mine. My colleague Sarah became my unofficial therapist over lunch. You know what the best revenge is? She said, stabbing her salad. Success. Visible, undeniable success. So I became visible. I attended every HOA meeting, every charity event Karen would hear about. I wore my best outfits, smiled my brightest smiles, and when people asked about Ethan, I simply said, we're exploring different paths. Karen texted after 3 weeks of silence. Stop this performative rebellion. I didn't respond. Lucas had taught me the power of silence. Ethan tried a different approach, showing up at my motel with flowers and calculated vulnerability. I fell for you, he insisted. The business arrangement was separate. Was it? I didn't let him in. Was it separate when you texted Karen during our first month about asset transfers? When you convinced me to quit freelancing, so I'd be dependent? His face cycled through emotions like he was picking which one might work. We can start over, real this time. We never started, Ethan. You can't start over from a lie. The next day, Lucas filed our official complaint with the state. We sent notice of intent to Karen and Ethan's lawyers. Return the full $200,000 plus damages or face public litigation. Karen called within an hour. You're destroying the community. No, got it. You destroyed it when you sold it. Meanwhile, I did something they never expected. I thrived. My work led to a promotion. I found a small rental outside the HOA with exposed brick and actual personality. I joined a kickboxing gym, channeling anger into uppercuts. Lucas kept me updated. They're scared. Richard's investors are asking questions. Ethan's board is nervous. Good. There was something else. He handed me a folder. I did some digging. This isn't the first time Karen's done this. 2 other new residents she helped with similar financial incentives. Both ended in quiet settlements. Other neighbors. Other lives manipulated. Can we use this? If we need to. The threat of exposure was too great. He was right. 3 days later, their lawyers requested a meeting. We're prepared to return the initial investment they offered. Lucas laughed. The stolen funds, you mean plus interest, penalties, and damages. Oh, and Maddie keeps her house free of any liens. That's extortion. That's negotiation, Lucas corrected. Your clients committed fraud. We're offering them a chance to make it right without criminal charges. As we left, Lucas touched my shoulder. You're doing great. Most people would have crumbled. I'm not most people. No, he agreed with admiration. You definitely aren't. The Pinecrest Community Center glittered with the neighborhood elite, the same venue where I'd been welcomed 8 months ago. Now I stood at the entrance of the annual HOA Gala, wearing a sleek black dress purchased with a credit card Ethan forgot to cancel. Maddie, you're not on the guest list. Ethan's assistant Jennifer went pale. Check again. I smiled, showing her my phone. I RSVP'd as a representative for my marketing firm. We're considering Pinecrest for our client portfolio. A lie. But she didn't know. She stammered and let me pass. The room buzzed with venture capitalists, tech moguls, and local journalists. Ethan stood near the stage, charming Singapore investors. Karen held court by the bar, resplendent in champagne silk, playing the proud community leader. Richard worked the room like the silver-tongued devil he was. Perfect. Lucas was already there, positioned near the media table. We'd rehearsed this for weeks. The evidence loaded on my phone. The journalist primed with anonymous tips. All I needed was the right moment. It came during Ethan's presentation. Pinecrest Future Fund represents ethical community investing, he declared, clicking through slides of projected returns. Our seed funding came from carefully vetted sources. I stood up. Every head turned. Interesting definition of vetted sources, Ethan, my voice carried across the silent room. Does that include the $200,000 you stole from a new resident's inheritance? Gasps rippled. Cameras swiveled. Ethan's smile froze. Maddie, this isn't the place. No, these residents don't deserve to know their golden boy is a fraud. Karen started toward me, but Lucas intercepted. Silent warning. I connected my phone to the presentation system. Jennifer hadn't changed the password. My evidence filled the screen, transfers, emails, the whole trail. 6 weeks before I moved in, I narrated, voice steady despite my racing heart. Ethan Whitaker entered a financial agreement with Karen Whitaker and Richard Klein in exchange for dating me and accessing my $200,000 inheritance. He received 30% stake in RK Ventures' new startup. The Singapore investors were already heading for the exit. That's defamation, Richard shouted. That's documentation. I corrected, clicking to the next slide. Their signed agreement. Every transfer, every email, every conspiracy. Ethan tried damage control. This is a private family matter. Embezzlement isn't private. I clicked again. Neither is lying to residents about ethically funded projects. You told everyone your startup was clean. You build it on theft. A journalist from the local paper stood. MS. Thompson, are you pursuing charges? That depends on whether they return what they stole with interest. Karen finally found her voice. You ungrateful, careful Karen. I met her eyes. I have 3 more slides about your previous help residents. Should I continue? Her face went white. The room held its breath. Ethan's lead investor stood slowly. Mr. Whitaker, we're withdrawing funding pending investigation. Others followed. Within minutes, the exodus began. Investors, partners, clients fleeing the sinking ship. You've destroyed everything. Ethan's composure shattered. My company, my future. Your company built on my money. Your future bought with my inheritance. I stepped closer. You destroyed everything the day you negotiated my welcome like I was a stock option. Karen pushed past Lucas, desperation cracking her facade. Maddie, we can discuss this privately. Like you discussed selling me privately? I pulled up the final slide. A photo from my housewarming, Karen whispering in my ear. You asked if I thought $200,000 bought me acceptance. The answer is no, but it did buy me the truth. And the truth is worth everything. Security arrived, but the damage was done. Journalists had their story. Investors had fled. The entire Pinecrest community had witnessed Karen Whitaker revealed as a fraud. As security escorted me out, Lucas beside me documenting everything, I passed Karen one last time. I was your neighbor, I said quietly. I would have contributed for free. For the first time I saw Karen cry. Raw, ugly recognition of what she'd lost. Outside the night was crisp. Lucas walked me to my car. That was brilliant, brutal, but brilliant. They taught me well, how to perform, how to present, how to destroy. They just never thought I'd use it against them. My phone exploded with notifications. I silenced it. What now? Lucas asked. Now, they have 72 hours to return my money before we file charges. Their reputations are ruined. Their business is dead. And everyone knows what they did. And you. I look back at the center where my fake welcome began and my real life started. I'm free. Karen's counterattack came at dawn 3 days later. Lucas called, voice tight. She filed a defamation suit claiming $5 million in damages. Says you fabricated everything. She's got the city's most ruthless firm. She also froze your trust through an injunction claiming she's still trustee of community funds. Within hours, I was in Lucas's conference room, surrounded by law books and coffee cups. Karen painted me as the unstable new resident who'd suffered a breakdown after relationship troubles, fabricating conspiracies. It's character assassination, Lucas muttered. But sophisticated. She's got affidavits from her board friends claiming you've been erratic. The preliminary hearing was set for Friday, 4 days to prepare. We need to go nuclear, Lucas said. Expose the other residents she targeted. I thought of those other neighbors, their privacy. Not without consent. We destroy her with the truth, not collateral. We worked 18-hour days. Lucas subpoenaed records. I built witness lists. My old colleague Sarah volunteered to testify. Jennifer agreed to confirm dates after Ethan had blamed her for missing contracts. The morning of the hearing, the local paper ran a hit piece, Pinecrest Family Tragedy, Mental Health and Money. Anonymous sources claimed I'd been in therapy, fired, that Ethan left due to my instability. I put on my Navy suit, the one I earned myself, and walked into court with my head high. Karen sat impeccable in cream Chanel, dabbing dry eyes, playing the wounded leader. Her lawyer painted me bitter and unstable. Then Lucas stood. Your Honor, we have bank records, emails explicitly discussing the exchange of relationship for equity stakes. He played a recording, Karen's voice cold and clear. Maddie's always been weak, desperate for approval. We maintain control of the fund, funnel it through the relationship, and she'll never question it. The judge reviewed everything, expression unreadable. Karen admitted authorizing the transfer without knowledge. The judge ruled from the bench. Defamation suit dismissed, claims validated, trust transferred to my control, restraining order granted, matter referred to district attorney for criminal fraud. What's ridiculous, the judge said with disgust, is a community leader treating a resident like a commodity. As security escorted Karen out, mascara running, she turned to me. I was trying to protect the standards. I was your neighbor, I said quietly. That should have been enough. The divorce-like mediation for the relationship and assets felt different, less grand, more worn. Ethan sat across the table in a borrowed suit. His lawyer offered no contest. Lucas laughed. No contest? Your client committed fraud. We're seeking full disclosure and equitable distribution. Ethan's voice was bitter. The company's dead. I'm living in my car. Part of me wanted sympathy. Most remembered him calling me manageable. We took the house equity, remaining shares, structured settlement. 3 hours of negotiation, Ethan fighting every penny in desperation. His fall had been spectacular, from tech wonder boy to cautionary tale in 8 weeks. I loved you, he said suddenly. In my way. Your way required a price tag. The judge granted the dissolution. I was restored to single status, unbought, unburdened. Outside, Ethan caught my arm one last time. The agreement Karen drafted, I never filed it. That morning I actually thought maybe we could make it real. But you didn't stop the deal. No. I was weak, greedy. Wanted both the money and you. Ended up with neither. He was leaving for honest work in another city. For what it's worth, you were always too good for the life Karen planned. I wasn't too good. I corrected. I was just worth more than the price. Lucas waited by his car. You okay? I showed him the bank alert. The house sale closing, proceeds mine. After fees, about $400,000 plus the trust, now entirely yours. Not bad for 8 months of hell. You conquered it. A text from Sarah. Drinks tonight, celebrating my promotion to senior director. My job, my money, my life. That evening I stood in the empty house one last time. Only the view remained. My phone rang, Karen's number. Maddie. Richard left. I'm selling the house. Moving to start over. I said nothing. I thought I was protecting the community from chaos I never meant. Yes, you did. Every manipulation, every price tag. Silence. You're right. And I'm sorry. Too late, too little, but necessary. Goodbye, Karen. I hung up, deleted her number, walked out for the last time. Tomorrow new owners would move in. Tomorrow Ethan would be gone. Tomorrow Karen would be packing. But tonight I was free, completely, gloriously free. The price of that freedom, everything I thought I had. The value, priceless. 1 year later, I stood in my new office in the next town over, watching rain streak the windows. Thompson Financial Freedom Consulting, my company, my name, my terms. The irony wasn't lost that I'd transformed the surname that once imprisoned me. Your 2 o'clock is here, my assistant called. Rebecca walked in, clutching documents of financial abuse, so familiar it could have been my story. The 3rd one this week. Word had spread. My HOA president controls everything. The accounts, the house, even my inheritance. I listened, took notes, remembered being her. We're going to get you free, I promised. It won't be easy, but freedom never is. My business grew fast. Turns out there were many residents trapped in gilded HOA cages needing someone who understood money could be both weapon and chain. I hired accountants, partnered with therapists, built a network of lawyers who got it. 6 months in, an unexpected call, Ethan's former assistant. He's doing well, sold new software for millions. He wanted me to tell her she was right. Some things are priceless. I felt nothing but quiet satisfaction. Ethan's redemption was his own. The surprise came 3 weeks ago, a package with no return address. Inside, a cashier's check for $200,000 and a note in Karen's handwriting. This was never mine to take. I used it to create the Thompson Foundation, legal aid for HOA victims who couldn't afford a fight. Karen's theft now funded other residents' freedom. It felt like justice, or at least poetry. Today, as Rebecca left with hope and a plan, I thought about the housewarming that started everything. Karen had been wrong. The $200,000 hadn't bought me acceptance. It bought me something far more valuable, the truth. The truth that I wasn't a commodity, an investment, a return to be maximized. I was Maddie Thompson, worth more than any number on a check. My phone buzzed. Another text. My HOA is forcing fees for a special project. Found your story. Can you help? I typed back, yes. First consultation free. You're not for sale. Because that's what I do now. Help people understand their worth isn't negotiable. That real community exists without price tags. That freedom is expensive, but never overpriced. The rain stopped. Sun broke through, painting my office gold. Somewhere, Karen was learning to live without control. And here, in my own space, built with my own pain and paid for with my own courage, I was finally home. Not the home Karen tried to purchase. The one I built myself, brick by brick, truth by truth. Another email pinged. Another client. Another cage to break. I smiled and got to work. After all, freedom was my business now, and business was good. The greatest revenge wasn't destroying them. It was building something beautiful from the wreckage. It was proving that some things, dignity, self-worth, freedom, truly are priceless. And I would never be for sale again.